Being here, I mean, the turnout is amazing, but an amazing speaker, which we're all looking forward to. My name is Elizabeth Yanez. I am the Business Development Manager, and I'm a nurse with the Visiting Nurses Association. So every last Wednesday of the month, ourselves and Central Coast Senior Services provide a speaker for you all. And I'm just so excited to continue the year. I'm hoping to see a full room at every one that we do. So thank you so much. Exciting news for the VNA. So we are celebrating 75 years in the community as a nonprofit, home health, hospice, and palliative. Thank you. So we have some exciting things coming up for the rest of the year. Some other events that we are, inviting our community that should be free. And so any questions, please reach out to the VNA, our site, www.ccvna.com. And in regards to any questions regarding your health, I'm Elizabeth. My information's in the back as well. But without further ado, today we will cover some perils of doing an internet search for brain-boosting supplements, and then walk through a hierarchy of reputable search sites for cognitive aging queries. Dr. Quinn Kennedy is a research psychologist who earned a PhD in psychology and completed postdoctoral training in cognitive aging both at Stanford University. She is the Director of Aging Research at neuroFit and an Advocacy Ambassador for the Alzheimer's Association Monterey chapter here. Dr. Kennedy has 20 plus years of research in adult aging and has been recognized through multiple awards, grants, and peer-reviewed journal publications. So thank you, Dr. Quinn Kennedy. Here you go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to Elizabeth and the Carmel Foundation for inviting me to speak to you today about how to be savvy about all those brain-boosting products that are out there. So my two goals today are, one, to share with you, illustrate some of the perils of doing what I call a cold internet search when you are looking for evidence-based information. And then after that, I'm going to share with you some reliable online sources that you can use so you can determine for yourself whether the latest brain-boosting fad has any evidence to back it up. So let's get started. So I know most people in here are a certain demographic, and perhaps you have been started to get bombarded for ads and infomercials about brain supplements, right? And you're feeling you're starting to succumb, that you feel like you should start taking one of these things. But you know you need to do some research. So let's say you type into your favorite internet browser, you type in brain supplements. And back in 2020, when I started giving this talk, I did that. And what popped up immediately was 2020's top 5 brain supplements. We tested over 144 brain pills. And your immediate gut reaction is probably, oh, that's great. They've done all the work for me. But the first red flag here is that this is an ad. They are going to try to sell you something. So what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to go to this website. I call it an infomercial site. And together we're going to find at least 3 red flags for using this as your source of information. So let's see how good my technological skills are at this point. Let's see if I got it. And it's right here. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so here we have top 5 nootropics of 2026, the complete guide. Oh. Okay, and to get you into the appropriate skeptical mood for reading this, I will share with you that nothing on this site has changed except the year at the top since 2020. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then, so there's some information, blah, 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 about what they're going to talk about. Who sees a red flag already with this? Say, Lila.
The doctor.
Yes, so here, I'm gonna be careful. We see this picture of a middle-aged male with his white lab coat, with a stethoscope around his neck, but no MD or PhD by his name, right? And in fact, he provides no credentials. And you would expect a site like this would have an MD or at least somebody who's a pharmacologist or something like that, right? But here we don't get any credentials. I, in fact, think this is a made-up person, and they just grabbed this photo off of like Google Images. So that's our first red flag. Is this a touch screen? Okay. Okay, so then it just goes through, and you're going to see how sneaky these sites are because it provides a lot of like reasonable sounding information. Some of it is helpfully bolded. So for example, they talk about, unfortunately, some of these products can cause drastic side effects like insomnia, nausea, and vomiting. And we see that they provide citations. And normally we consider citations to be a good thing, right? They are a way for us to verify the claims made in that statement. Okay, so we see some reasonable sounding information, talk about some benefits, what to look for in a nootropic supplement. So apparently we're supposed to look for ginkgo biloba because that has been found purportedly to increase blood flow to the brain, which is thought to help improve cognition. And we see a citation 9. Then we go on to St. John's wort, which is supposed to help regulate the mood and improve focus. That's citation 10. And then we go to the most exciting of them all, Bacopa monnieri, which has yielded some impressive results. In one double-blind study, it was shown to correlate with improved memory among participants who used it. Citation 11. So here is your one memory test for today. I want you to remember citations 9, 10, and 11. Just remember those 3 numbers, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, I got it, yeah. Okay, so we continue. Again, some kind of reasonable sounding information, things to avoid. Again, this is reasonable. Free trial offers, depending on Amazon reviews. I really want to point that one out. And then we get to the second red flag, how we rank things. So if you are looking for evidence that a brain supplement is effective in improving cognitive function, what you should see here is a description of the scientific process they went through to test that effectiveness, right? But instead we see things like these vague terms about value, customer reception, company policies, right? None of this has anything to do with anything, right? So again, this is our second red flag. Here we would expect to see some description about a scientific process that they went to testing the effectiveness of that supplement. So we continue, and now they've got their top 5. The names are always great. And you can see, right, they just warned us about Amazon ratings. What did they do right here? They have their Amazon ratings right there, right? So like, they just told us to avoid that. All right, so we move on. We look at these pros that they have, and we see that, wow, this is amazing. They actually have some statistics in here. So 87% of users saw significant improvement in mental clarity, focus, and memory within just the first 3 weeks. 92% of users reported reduction in their brain fog. And you notice here, all of a sudden we're not seeing citations anymore. We do see an asterisk, so let's see if we can hunt down that asterisk. And because I've been on this site many times, I know I gotta scroll all the way to the bottom, and you can't really see it, but it's for this statement about how this has not been evaluated by the FDA, okay? So here we see this red flag where anytime you see a statistic, and for some of you, you know I used to teach statistics at the Naval Postgraduate School, so this really gets my goat. But this is exactly when you should see a citation, right? So you can verify, you can go and look at the scientific study and confirm for yourself that, yeah, 87% of users reported this. But they take that away from us. We have no way to verify this claim. Okay, so they continue. The cons are, gosh, this thing is so popular. If you don't buy it now, you're going to miss out on your opportunity. Okay, and then even on the right, you see, even though they've got, very scientific sounding statement, they don't even have the asterisk anymore, right? They don't even have that. So again, this red flag is anytime you see a statistic, 87%, 92% of users, you should expect to see a citation. Okay, the next one, anytime that first pro was proven to increase mental performance, anytime you see that phrase was proven to, you should absolutely expect to see a citation. That is a very strong statement in science. What that is supposed to mean is that there have been a number of studies done and they all consistently report the same basic thing, okay? So again, there's no citation, there's no asterisk, there's no nothing. So there's no way for you to verify that claim. Okay, moving on. These are all, okay. So then we get to the bottom, and remember I've talked about citations a fair amount. And in the beginning we had those citations, and then here you see their list. Now for those of you who are familiar with PubMed, you may glance at this list and say, okay, well they've got some PubMed articles in here, I might give them the benefit of the doubt. For those of you who don't know what PubMed is, we're going to cover it later, so don't worry. But because of these other red flags we've seen, we're going to examine some of these citations. And here's another red flag. These are not hyperlinks. You have to manually copy and paste these links into your browser, so they make it hard for you to even check their citations. So what are the 3 citations I asked you to remember? Okay, so let's go to 9, was supposed to be about ginkgo biloba. Okay, so that takes us to this. This is indeed a scientific study, right? This is an article in a scientific journal, but it's about titanium dioxide in our everyday life. Is it safe? What has this got to do with ginkgo biloba? Absolutely nothing, right? Okay, so far we're 0 for 0. The next citation is for St. John's wort, right? That takes us to this online magazine, right? So obviously not a scientific study, something about the economics of the money-back guarantee. So clearly they're not talking about the scientific evidence testing the effectiveness of St. John's wort. However, I do want to point out that compared to our infomercial website we were just looking at, you can see that the authors do provide their credentials, right? So we could actually check that Yalcin Akay, at some point in his life, was a professor of operations management at the Melbourne Business School, right? So we could check that. Compared to our guy, Arthur Berkowitz, again, I don't think he's a real person. Okay, so we're 0 and 2. Now we get to that Bacoba Monterey with the impressive double-blind results, blah, blah, blah. And that takes us to this website, Good Manufacturing Practice Resources. As I mentioned, I've been in this talk for 6 years. This still gets me so upset, right? This is egregious, right? They just found whatever websites they wanted and just slopped them into this website, right? And if you weren't careful, you would just assume that because they're listing these citations that they are actually relevant and verify that the claims that they made. So many, many, many red flags with this infomercial website. So now let me see. Okay. Here. Can I do it? Okay. So here's just a summary. of these warning signs, red flags. So the site is posted as an ad, the author provides no credentials, the ranking of the products is not based off of any kind of scientific process. Where we expect to see citations, they suddenly don't appear, and many of the citations actually have absolutely nothing to do with the topic. And these sites are so sneaky because, as you saw, they intersperse reasonable sounding information with just really false or misleading information. So please do not start your search just typing something into the internet browser. So where should you go instead? Here's what I call the hierarchy of search sources. So you're going to start with either the Alzheimer's Association or the National Institute on Aging. Your .edu is also a reliable source of information. And one way for you to kind of think about the legitimacy of a website is to ask yourself, to what extent would this institution or organization's reputation be at stake if they provided false or misleading information on their website? For the Alzheimer's Association, that would be absolutely devastating to their reputation, right? For our guy, Arthur Berkowitz, no skin off his nose, not a real person, right? Okay, now if you're not finding what you're looking for from the Alzheimer's Association or the National Institute on Aging, then, or you're more of a do-it-yourself person, you can use PubMed or Google Scholar. And these are what scientists and medical professionals use. This is where we get our information. So PubMed hosts the abstracts of scientific studies that have been published in hundreds of biomedical journals. And then Google Scholar is similar. I personally find it to be a little bit more Wild West because it will include other types of scholarly articles besides peer-reviewed journal articles. So we're going to walk through in a moment how to use this hierarchy. But before we do that, I just want to mention, for when you're going to do your own search on PubMed or Google Scholar, that different types of sources provide different levels of information. So I'm going to start here on the bottom right. So these are your conference presentations or your conference papers. These are great for hot off the press findings, but they often have not been carefully reviewed by scientific peers, okay? I cannot tell you the number of times that I have attended a conference presentation where the presenter says, and I just finished these analyses last night. Clearly hot off the press findings, clearly nobody else has seen them, right? They haven't been vetted by anybody else. Next up, you have your peer-reviewed journal articles, and these are considered to be the gold standard because they will still be timely, but they will have gone through a rigorous peer review system. How many people here are familiar with peer review? Oh, a lot of people. Okay. So I'll be brief then. So basically what that phrase means, peer review, is let's say I just published a paper in a scientific journal called Psychology of Aging. For me to have that paper published means that between 2 to 5 scientists who are experts in that particular subfield of cognitive aging reviewed my paper, critiqued my paper. I had to address all their concerns in a revised paper, and only when these peer reviewers think that I have appropriately acknowledged all their concerns will that paper be published. So it's a very rigorous process. You can go through multiple iterations before a paper will be accepted. That is also the process that the NIH uses for funding grant proposals. It's even more rigorous for grants. So anyway, so that's why that phrase peer-reviewed is so important. It means it's gone through a very rigorous vetting process. Okay, and then lastly, you see your handbooks, your dictionaries, your professional literature. These are great for cogent overviews of a topic, but you have to keep in mind that, with publishing, let's say I've been asked to submit a chapter to Handbook of Adult Cognition. By the time I send my chapter to the editor, and when that book is actually published, so much time may have elapsed that some of the information in that book is already outdated on the time of publication, right? And that's particularly the case for hot new topics. Okay, so with that, all right, we're gonna walk through this hierarchy, and I just randomly chose fish oil supplements, okay? So these are the pills, not eating fish. All right, so let me see here. I go here. And I go. Okay. Yeah, it did.
But it doesn't show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're actually going to start with the National Institute on Aging for this hierarchy. This is a great resource for general information about aging. So if I go over here to health information, I'm just going to go to the A to Z health topics so you can kind of see the breadth. So advanced care planning, brain health, caregiving, exercise, heart health, loneliness, and so forth. Okay, let's see if they have anything under supplements. They do not, so I'm going to check brain health first. Okay, and so here you see they have some nice pragmatic information about cognitive health, how aging affects your brain, but nothing specifically on supplements. So the next place I would look would be healthy eating. It's kind of a tangent. So let's see here. We've got healthy meal planning, how much should I eat? Again, some very pragmatic information, but nothing on supplements. And because I have the time, I'm just going to share with you this other really great part of this website. So the National Institute on Aging has created over, I think, 70 different fact sheets, pamphlets, booklets on different aspects of aging. Some of them are available in Spanish, and you can download any of these for free. Up until recently, you could actually request hard copies, so the Carmel Foundation could get hard copies to have available. So I recommend, when you have time scrolling through these, I'd be surprised if you didn't find at least one that was relevant to you or to the Carmel Foundation. Are you considered clients, members? I'll say members. Yeah, okay. So our first stop on this hierarchy, the National Institute on Aging, we didn't find anything. So next we're going to go to the Alzheimer's Association. And because I've been on this site many times, I know exactly where to go. So from the main page, I would go to About Alzheimer's and Dementia. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to Treatments and Medications. Get rid of that. And then again, I'm going to scroll all the way down to Alternative Treatments. Okay. And here we go to our omega-3 fatty acids. And one of the nice things that the Alzheimer's Association has done here is that for each of these supplements or alternative treatments, they first describe what is it, They then describe why scientists think it might be helpful for cognitive function or reducing risk for dementia. And then they summarize the results from high quality scientific studies. Okay, and here you can see, and then they come up with a conclusion. And here their conclusion is that there's not enough evidence to recommend fish oil for Alzheimer's. Okay. Now, we also see that this is from 2009, right? So not particularly recent. So let's see if we can find something a little bit more current from PubMed. So I go to PubMed, and literally all I would do is type PubMed into the browser, and it will take me here. And then I'm just going to type in fish oil and cognitive function. Okay, so it's a little overwhelming. There's over 1,300 results. So what I do in this situation is I make it a little bit more manageable by going over to the left here and limiting the number of years. So I'm going to make it the last 13 years. And the AI, whatever, on PubMed very helpfully puts the articles that it thinks is the most relevant to your search terms up at the top. So we see this third one, association of fish oil supplement use with preservation of brain volume and cognitive function. And you say, bingo, that's exactly what I'm interested in, right? We also see that in that brown font, it says free PMC article. So what happens when I click on this is that over here, that little button that says free full text PMC, that means that if I click on that, I can read the entire article either on that website, or I can go ahead and download it as a PDF to save it for free. Okay, so that's a really wonderful aspect of PubMed. So let's go ahead and look at this abstract. I'll give you a minute to read it, and then I'll kind of summarize it. Oh, sorry. Know thy audience. Yeah, you can start with, the methods. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's much better. Okay, so basically they did a large-scale observational study with about 800 participants, some of whom were cognitively healthy, some of whom were diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, and some of whom were diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And here, when we get down to the results, give you a moment there. Okay, I'll summarize it. Basically, they found that fish oil use was helpful for a small subset of that sample. So basically, only cognitively healthy adults who do not have the Alzheimer's genetic risk factor, which is ApoE4. Okay, so depending on who you are, that may or may not be helpful to you. Okay? All right, so now for completeness sake, we're going to go to Google Scholar. And again, I would just type Google Scholar into the browser. And again, I'm going to just type in fish oil and okay, and you see we get some different articles that pop up, right? And again, this very first one up at the top looks spot on. Again, effective fish oil. I'm going to click on it in a moment. Fish oil on cognitive performance in older subjects, a randomized controlled trial. So I'm going to click on this one. Okay, There's no way neurology is going to let us read this article for free, but it will provide the abstract. So I'm just going to go, sorry, I don't mean to make you dizzy. Okay, so basically here they did a really well-designed experiment with about 300 cognitively healthy older adults, where these participants were randomly assigned to either take fish oil or a placebo for 6 months. What they found basically was that fish oil was ineffective. It didn't do anything for people's cognitive function. It was no better than placebo. So based off of these two studies, one was an observational, one was an experiment, we would come to the same conclusion as we saw on the Alzheimer's Association website. Basically, there is not enough evidence to indicate that fish oil helps cognitive function. Okay, so this is how you would go ahead and use this hierarchy, if you will. Okay, there we go. Okay, so some take-home points from this lecture. So please, please, please do not do a cold internet search when you're looking for evidence-based information, right? Start with the Alzheimer's Association or the National Institute on Aging. They do a wonderful job of vetting and synthesizing those scientific findings for us. If you can't find what you're looking for, or you're more of a do-it-yourself person, your next step is to go to PubMed and Google Scholar, type in the name of the current trendy brain supplement, and the first thing is see if anything pops up at all, because if nothing pops up, you've already got your answer, right? Okay, and then if we want to get into the weeds, I can, but when you're looking at these abstracts, there's some questions you can ask yourself. So we can go into this more at the Q&A, but basically an experiment is going to give you stronger results than an observational study. You want large sample size, so you want something that's at least a few hundred people, right? A lot of these studies with these new trendy brain supplements, they'll have sample sizes of only like 10 to 15 people, right? So how much confidence can you really have on those results when there's so few participants? You also want to ask yourself, it's not on here, but are the participants demographically similar to me? So if you find a study that's on, college athletes, might not apply, right? And then how much of the supplement did these people actually have to take? And is it safe to take that amount on a regular basis, right? Because that was just an experiment. After 6 months, they're not going to take it again. So one last thing I'm going to talk about very briefly before I open it up to questions is on the back, I think many of you already saw, on the left side, there's some great resources from the Alzheimer's Association, and then on, I guess, my right side, information, I think, from the VNA, and then also, as Elizabeth mentioned, I work for a startup called NeuroFit. We have an eye movement tool that can measure general brain health. I think this would be eventually a wonderful tool for people to be able to use to monitor their own brain health at home. We have so far a lot of laboratory findings. We are interested to see if this tool would work for people using it at home, right? Because everything we've done has been me or somebody else administering it to other people. So we are looking for individuals who would be interested in trying this tool periodically over a number of weeks to assess the feasibility and how often you would use it and that kind of thing. That's also back there. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. Yes.
So the supplement stuff, it's huge business right now.
Yep.
Right? I mean, they're just selling tons of this stuff. If you go through all that, or you've probably already done that, are we gonna come to those same conclusions that none of them work?
Yes.
I mean, it helps, because take Costco as an example.
Oh, yes. So, sorry, let me repeat the question. So, the question was, brain supplements are big business. We just went through one little example. If we went through all of them, would we draw the same conclusion? And I said, yes.
So other than diet and exercise, other than physical stuff, are we just...
Correct. You're wasting your money.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I mean, that's
Yes.
powerful.
Yes. Yes. And then I'll go over here.
During a physical, my doctor recommended that I take fish oil supplements. So based on that, I went to Costco and got a fish oil, and she didn't recommend any company or anything. But doesn't a doctor go through the process of research?
So this is specific to cognitive function, right? So that's got nothing to do with heart health. Okay, I gotta read, all right. So there's a question, this lady's physician has recommended that she start taking fish oil. And my response is, what I showed you today, remember my search term was specific about cognitive function. I did not look at heart health. I did not look at cardiovascular health, which is what I suspect your physician is interested in. She's interested in protecting your heart health. She should go to PubMed to check out the science. I hope she did, but you can now go for yourself and see. Just type in fish oil and cardiovascular function and see what comes up. Yes, Dr. Mountain.
I'm interested in your comments about programs such as Brain HQ.
Ha.
Is it science?
Yes, so there's a question about what about all those brain training programs like Brain HQ, Lumosity, etc., etc., etc. So there was, it's a little old, but the results still hold. About 7 or 8 years ago, one of the journals I subscribed to, it's called Psychological Science and Public Interest. Anyway, it's one issue every few months, and that whole issue is dedicated to addressing one big question. And 7 or 8 years ago, that question was, do brain training programs work? And the editor had the top scientists in that field do a deep dive into that question. The first thing they did is they say, okay, how many of these brain training programs cite any kind of scientific study as evidence that this product worked? They found that, so they found 24 programs. Half cited no evidence, scientific evidence that their program worked. Okay, so that's your first take-home message. If you're going to try one of these things, go to PubMed, go to Google Scholar, type the name of, see what happens. And then, so there's half didn't cite any evidence, 7 cited in-house studies, which we know are susceptible to conflict of interest, meaning that only 5 out of 24 cited any kind of external study as evidence that that product worked. And then the researchers said, okay, of the programs that cite any kind of scientific study, do those studies show that it works? And they found little evidence for this. So basically, Mike, you will appreciate this, basically gets into this topic of transfer of training. So you may improve a lot on one of these memory things that you've been doing on the computer, but that is not going to help you when you're standing in the middle of Safeway trying to remember the items on the list that you left back home, okay? So that improvement from the computerized brain training does not transfer over into real life, okay? The silver lining with those programs was that the programs that try to improve how fast your brain works, what we call processing speed, did show some modest benefit, but there were methodological studies with issues with those studies. So, and people have, other studies have found that there's pretty low adherence to these. And then So it's probably not. What I usually tell people is that you'd probably be better off having your kid or your grandkid teach you how to play one of their video games than doing one of these. Yes, all the way in the back.
Is there a prescribed scientific study that is conducive to not losing cognitive function?
Yes. Okay, so the question was, is there a prescribed scientifically backed method for maintaining cognitive function? There is, I do a whole workshop on that question. And so here is the order in terms of the amount of evidence and the biggest impact. Cardiovascular exercise is the number one thing that you can do for your long-term brain health and cognitive function. Okay, about 150 minutes a week is the recommendation. Second is trying to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep on a regular basis. So what happens when you get less than 7 hours, sorry, there's an echo. Less than 7 hours on a regular basis is it kickstarts this horrible vicious cycle where part of the neuropathology of Alzheimer starts building up in your brain. It's called amyloid beta. Some of that, oh, okay. Some of it builds up in the sleep centers of your brain, meaning it's going to be harder for you to get good sleep, which means it's going to accumulate more amyloid beta, and then you've got this horrible cycle, and eventually that can lead to Alzheimer's disease. So you really want to try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That's really important. Third one is diet. So there's 2 diets that have been found to be beneficial for long-term cognitive function. One is called the MIND diet, Mediterranean DASH diet, intervention for neurodegenerative delay, right? Scientists came up with that one. It is a specific combination of the Mediterranean diet and a DASH diet that's used to help with hypertension. And basically what they have found is what they encourage you to do is they found that certain food groups are what we call brain healthy, in that they inhibit that amyloid beta and neuroinflammation from accumulating in your brain. So it encourages you to eat those food groups, and those are your leafy green vegetables, nuts, whole grains, poultry, fish. And then it recommends you limiting foods that have been found to be brain unhealthy, because these foods have been found to actually increase the amount of amyloid beta in the brain. And these are, surprise, surprise, your fast fried foods, your pastries and sweets, your red meat, very sadly cheese is on there too. And then the Mediterranean diet has also been found to be beneficial for long-term cognitive function. So that's 4. After that, it's doing cognitively stimulating activities. So learning a new skill is a great way to keep your long-term cognitive function going. Learning a new sport would be a wonderful way to get some exercise at the same time. And then the last one is strong social connection. So coming to the Carmel Foundation on a regular basis and socializing is huge. Especially, as you all know, there is a epidemic of social isolation in this country, especially with older adults. So that is a very long-winded answer. Yes? Yes?
The conflict between, on cholesterol, between it being essential for the brain and then your doctor saying you need to reduce it. Any insight on that?
So there's a question about balancing cholesterol, because it can be good for your brain, but we all know we need to have healthy levels. I don't have an answer to that, but that's a great question. Yeah. Anybody else before I go back to you? Yes?
You need to sleep more. Does it matter if you do it naturally or with pills?
So you should definitely try to do it.
Question?
Yes. The question was trying to get 7 to 9 hours sleep. Should I do it naturally or can I use pills? Naturally. Yeah. The pills make it worse. Yes. Yeah. The only one that I'm aware of that is okay is melatonin when you're traveling 3 or more time zones. Okay, otherwise, yes.
What about
Gabapentin is, what is that again? Remind me.
Calms the nervous system.
Oh, I haven't heard anything about gabapentin and what cognitive function. Is that the question? I don't know, so I would go to PubMed.
Well, this is the case where your psyche is so disturbed by images and dreams, and your nervous system is rattled.
Okay.
If you take gabapentin, like 300 to 400 milligrams, then it just calms your nervous system. You get a good night's sleep and all this.
I would still go to PubMed.
Okay.
Yes.
You have a question here about.
Oh, yes.
Thing about prejudice,
There's a question about prejudice. Is that the one that they always do the commercials on TV for? Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes.
Is there any evidence of the effect of our Secretary of Health and Human Services and NIH?
So this gentleman is asking about current administrative people and their impact on our population health. So I will share with you the National Institute on Aging. Ever since last January, I've been checking it periodically to see what will happen. And I was telling Phil, the information that is still on there is fine, right? You saw it's like basic pragmatic information. They have removed all of the more scientific findings from the website. CDC, I would no longer consider to be reliable. So what I would recommend is, and I've looked for this, like Canada is still, I would go to Canada, their version of CDC, the UK's version of the CDC, or the NIH. So I would check those sites out as well. They're not as nice or as user-friendly as ours, unfortunately, but they are going to be reliable sources of information. Yeah. Very sad to bring that up. Yes.
I was checking for some information one time, and then I found that Cleveland Clinic seemed to provide very good information for that purpose when I was looking for.
Yeah, so I think anything that's affiliated with a university or a medical school is probably going to be reliable. So the question was, this lady has gone to the Cleveland Clinic for information. Is that reliable? So anything, .edu or .med school should be reliable. I'm still gonna wait on you.
Okay.
Okay, lady with the red hair.
Going back to sleep, can you comment on CBD and the use of gummies?
Okay. So older adults are using them. Oh yeah, so sorry. So the question was about using CBD gummies and sleep, for sleep. What I know about that is very limited. They did a study a few years ago about older adults starting to use, like what does that usage look like? And they found you guys are like the CBDs and the gummies. It's a lot of people are using them, and that's kind of as far as it's gotten, because my understanding is that the dosages vary, and so it hasn't been tested scientifically in terms of the effects for older adults. So I don't know I would go to PubMed. Yeah. Yes, gentleman with the brown shirt. Yes, you.
I sleep 10 hours every night. Is that too much?
So the question is, this gentleman sleeps 10 hours a night. Is it too much? Yes. So there is some research that shows that sleeping more than 9 hours on a regular basis also modestly increases your risk for dementia. Not nearly as much as getting less than 7 hours, but it's still a risk. So you really want to be like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? So you don't want too little or too much. You want right in the middle there. And you may find that when you start limiting your sleep to 9 hours, that you actually sleep more deeply and better. I'm gonna go to, yes, this gentleman.
On the same vein,
Okay,
when you're talking about hours of sleep, are you talking about sound sleep or how long you're in bed?
yeah, so, this is a great question because sleep scientists can't answer that question either. So basically, right now, I would do it off of a qualitative, when you think you fell asleep and when you woke up, which is very different from how long you've been in bed. And again, the question was, is it how long I've been in bed or how long I've slept? And I will say, for those of you who like your sleep watch things, they work best when you sleep well. Right, so they can or cannot be helpful, right? Okay, yes, this lady here, yes.
I talk to my brain when I go to bed, and I said, well, I need to sleep so many hours, wake me at a certain hour.
This lady has an amazing technique. She gets into bed and she tells her brain how many hours she needs to sleep and to wake her up when she's done, and it works. Amazing. Okay, yes.
Can you go over the diet, or do you have information on the healthy and non-healthy diet foods?
Yeah, so that was, no big surprises. The main thing is you should be eating leafy vegetables every day, and also what I would call regular vegetables on top of that. And then nuts, whole grains, fish, poultry.
Kind of like frozen fish, because we don't get fresh.
That should be fine, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, asked about frozen fish should be fine.
Unhealthy foods are yogurt or dairy, or which?
So the question is yogurt or dairy considered an unhealthy brain food? It's kind of cognitively neutral except for the cheese. So yogurt, like a low-fat yogurt is good, kefir is good, low-fat milk is fine. Oh, and I will add that JAMA just came out, Journal of American Medicine Association just came out with a study for all of us coffee lovers, where they found that drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day actually reduced your risk for dementia. So, but after that amount, it's kind of a flat. So you can enjoy your coffee in the morning a little bit more. Yes.
So going back to sleep, what about naps? Any study on naps?
So there's a question about naps. So naps in the afternoon, 10 to 20 minutes are perfectly fine. Yes.
Is there a big difference? I do wear my watch to find out how I'm sleeping. It tells me in the morning. Is there a big difference in health if it's REM sleep or the deep sleep or the core sleep? Because mine doesn't show a lot of deep sleep. It's mostly core and a little bit of REM.
Okay, so this question is about the different types of sleep, REM, and so forth. And again, I can tell you that sleep scientists don't know the answer to that. That actually, I attend a lot of conferences and presentations, and that was a recent, they're like, yeah, we don't know. Okay, I'll take 2 more questions. Phil, in the back.
So, just to let everybody know, if technology and looking stuff up on a website is a little daunting sometimes, you can called the Alzheimer's 24/7 helpline. All day, every day, ask your questions about any of these things and you will get answers just like you would from the website. So the cards are back here. You can pick up the cards and you can make a phone call if that's a better way for you to get information.
Call the Alzheimer's Association with questions you have. Okay, who's gonna be, you already asked one. So I'm gonna go back here, the lady with the hat.
Could you address brain fog? What is it? Is it a real thing and how do you treat it?
Okay, so there's a question about brain fog. So when I hear that term, two things come to mind. One is COVID-related brain fog. That is a thing. Scientists are studying the long-term effects of COVID on brain fog. I haven't seen any results yet. And then also sometimes women going through perimenopause may also experience brain fog as well. And that is also a real phenomenon. In terms of perimenopause, you know, it can be easy to be worried that you're showing early signs of dementia. Most of the time, it's going to go away once you get through menopause. And then on that note, in the back, I know usually there's a few people who attend my talks who are worried that they or a loved one is showing signs of dementia or cognitive impairment. On the back there, there is a wonderful flyer from the Stanford VA Alzheimer's Center. They do free comprehensive memory evaluations. That's our state taxes at work. You can do an in-person evaluation, make a day out of it, go shopping, or you can do it via Zoom in the comfort and privacy of your own home, okay? So that is a wonderful resource too. So with that, I think I'll end.
Thank you, Dr. Quinn Kennedy. Very excited to have her, and please get the information in the back. I've been to one other talk of Dr. Kennedy, and I've learned a lot for myself and my health and my future. So thank you so much.